I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, Flatbush, Brooklyn. My father was a hustler. My mom was a secretary and a dance hall queen at night. I grew up with a lot of different kinds of music fused within my home. So I was listening to like reggae and Latin music, but in my headphones was mostly hip hop. And I really deeply fell in love with hip hop my whole life. And then when I was turned 15, I had a partner who wanted to be a rapper, and he pushed me to push my poetry. And then he was unfortunately murdered by his best friend. And I utilized poetry to heal myself out of all the depressions that I was feeling and the lack of expression I was feeling. And so when I went to Wesleyan University, I studied hip hop, Black studies, psychology, and really deeply dug into what it means to be a Black body in America and a Black artist in America. And I thought I was going to go to Broadway because I was writing plays and prose in college, and life had a different story. And I ended up working at Chase Bank. Hated it. Would go into work with like my long nails and my long weave, and everybody's like, girl, you don't look like you belong here. And I was like, no, I don't. At night, I would be performing at ciphers and poetry slams. And one day, someone hit me up to be a part of like a viral cipher that was going around. And I said, okay. And I rapped for the first time. And everybody was like, girl, I think you're a rapper. And I was like, all right, let me try this rap thing out. And made my first mixtape, and that went viral. And I did a short film to the mixtape, and that went viral. And then all of a sudden, I was opening for like Big Sean and Q-Tip and Kanye and all these crazy people. But I didn't know much about the music industry. I just was just going. All I knew was like, don't sign, don't get your masters taken from you, et cetera, et cetera. And then I would go to label meetings, and I was just not into what the labels were offering me. I just felt like I was being taken advantage of as an artist, and I was being told to box in and become something that I just didn't want to be. As a woman rapper, especially a Black woman rapper, we're oftentimes on either sides of the spectrum. It's either you're super sexually explicit and out there, or you're Black Power movement. And I feel like I'm kind of a mix of all of them, and I wanted to exude that, but people didn't really understand that at the time. And so I fell into a deep depression and kind of went into like suicidal thoughts, et cetera, because I was so in love with music, but I felt like the world didn't know me or love me for my music. And then I just took some time off, and I started getting into it slowly, and a woman heard one of my songs called Black Magic. And she was like, hey, girl, I think you really are supposed to be doing this music thing. And she gave me $10,000 to quit my 9-to-5 and to fully go into being an artist. And so I quit my job, and I fully went independent. And the independent route was hard. I was homeless for some time. I was losing my mind for other times, but found myself becoming a performance artist through National Sawdust and The Shed. I had a residency program there that I was building out, and that really shaped my new existence. And then I moved to LA and found NFTs, and the story kind of goes. Sure. So I moved to LA 2 years ago, which is like 2019. And when we moved, I didn't have a job or anything. I just was coming here strictly for music. I was writing music for commercials and TV and things of that nature. And I got a publishing deal to pay the bills because the pandemic happened. And I was like, I got to pay some bills. And it was like an $8,000 deal that was like nothing. And it was also just for a year. And in that time, the publishing label was forcing us to like make music videos and things of that nature, and didn't want to pay my team. So I fell into a real deep depression because I was like, how are you asking us to do all this work and you're not giving us anything for it? And so I stopped making music for the publishing label, and I just started getting deep into metaphysics and manifestation work. I was like, okay, how am I going to make this money? How am I going to get away from the middleman and somebody taking my money from me? How am I going to just do this full time? And then my partner, Art by Ja on Twitter, or Jamel Reynolds, he's a filmmaker and 2D artist and 3D animator. He started getting into NFTs, and he just came into the room and was like, babe, do you know about NFTs? And I was like, no. And I was so scared. I was like, what about your copyright? Somebody's going to steal your art. Stop doing this. And he was like, no, I think, this is a viable way for us to really make some income. And it's on the blockchain, so everything is transparent. And so I was like, wow, that's really crazy. And so I was just studying how he was navigating this whole thing. I was like making sense of it all. I was getting deeper within the community and connecting with people who were in this space. And I minted my first piece in February, and I became the first woman rapper on blockchain and one of the first to bring music video to the blockchain. I decided to push music video because I feel like music video is an art form in itself. I feel oftentimes music video is taken for granted and just seen as a marketing tool, but honestly, I think some of the best art that I've ever seen in my life is music video. And so I wanted to push a space for that, and I felt like the blockchain was the best space to bring that out. And so I've been doing it for the last year. And in a summer, I made, through my music videos, what I would have made in a record deal without giving my copyright away, without giving anything away. And now I'm also head of community programming at Zora, which is an NFT protocol dedicated to autonomy and sovereignty for artists. Yes, Zora is amazing. Zora is an NFT protocol. So what's the difference between Zora and a regular marketplace is that Zora offers open source code for anyone to pretty much build their own marketplaces, auction houses, whatever they want on top of their space. And it pretty much all lives on chain. So that means everything is living on the blockchain when you release onto Zora. I like to think of Zora as a sun, and then there's these little planets growing out of it. So we have different different platforms that are growing outside of Zora, like Catalog Works, which is one-of-one music NFTs. We also have Artiva app, which I call the new MySpace. And you pretty much could build your own marketplace there. Anyone could build it, and it's just a click of a few buttons and you have a marketplace. We have Alta, which is like interactive NFTs that you could like draw on and do different things on. And there's a bunch of different ones growing out of Zora. And what I love about Zora is the fact that I think Zora takes culture first into account. Unlike other spaces, which I feel is very monetary and very like focused on, the tool, I think Zora thinks about the culture and thinks about the people that are building within it and really tries to grow things for the people that are building on it. And so I became community lead there. And then a few months later, after building Zoratopia, which I'm sure we'll talk about, Zoratopia, which is an educational platform, I became head of community programming there. And it's just been beautiful to witness how the community is really grabbing onto Zora because it feels like the safest space for them to be their fullest selves. Yeah, I mean, Zoratopia started out just because I was getting 3,000 DMs a day from people who just wanted to know about Web3 and wanted to know about NFTs. And I just couldn't answer every single person on my DMs. So I was like, yo, let me just, teach a class or have a hangout every other Wednesday. And I hate being called a teacher. So I was like, it's not a teacher, it's a hangout. So I started these Zoom calls where people would just pull up and I would show them how to get their own wallet through MetaMask. And I would also show them about the blockchains and, what it is. And then I would show them different NFT marketplaces and protocols that they could use, like Zora, like OpenSea, like Foundation, et cetera, et cetera. And I would just teach them how to sell an NFT. It started out like that. And now it's growing into so much more. We also have like classes that are dedicated to teaching about different tools that are on the blockchain, like party bid. We also have IRL events that are happening. Every conference we're taking over. I like to think we're taking over the conference with Zoratopia and just showing the other side of Web3 and crypto. Oftentimes when we see Web3 and crypto, we're seeing crypto bros or just white rich males talking about how much money they made, and we're not seeing how this space is actually transforming lives. It's actually like getting connected with the Black community, the queer community, folks that were always disenfranchised are now finding a new means to find generational wealth. And I'm hyped for that. So Zoratopia is to show that side. And we have these dope parties where people get to connect. Oftentimes it's a big mixed crowd. We just don't know who's going to show up. And it's usually like massively diverse with like builders, artists, people from marginalized communities, folks who have lots of money. And, I just like creating communes that like create that world, not to make it culty, but, that's what I'm here for.
It takes a village.
It does. It really does take a village. And I think people forget that. Sometimes when we're thinking about artists, we think about fan artists. And I'm like, no, what we really are creating here is movements. And with movements, you need a village. You need groups of people with the same kind of ideas pushing an idea forward. And I'm excited for that. Yeah, I think NFT in America is really special in the sense that we are actually highlighting something different every time that somebody walks onto the stage. I saw the first presentation and I was like, oh, I hope you guys are ready for what I'm about to present because this is not the same. But it was really cool to feel like welcomed to tell my story in this way and to, shed light on the culture and the space that Zora is building. We aren't like a regular tech firm, and so Web3 and NFTs, I feel like, are very diverse, and NFT in America is offering that, like something diverse, something that gets to the bottom line, and is like explaining. Sometimes you go to these conferences and you're just like, who is here to explain to me anything? It just feels like a big old party. But this space, you're actually learning and grabbing and connecting. And I really love this. And I'm excited for Zoratopia maybe to work with NFT in America in the future.